William Townsend was perhaps born around 1842 in Franklin County, Ohio, although genealogical records don't clearly confirm this. If your family's history sounds like this, you're not alone. But that's exactly why people stop reading. And it's not because your ancestor is boring. It's because most of us were never taught how to turn genealogy into a story, especially when the records are missing. So let me show you a better way to start. In the early 1840s, America was stretching westward full of promise and tension. In Ohio, farmland was being carved out of dense forest. And just a few miles from the growing city of Columbus, families were building lives one field at a time. It was in this world that William Townsend's life began. Same person, same limited records, completely different experience for the reader. Do you see the difference? If you do, and you want to write like this, let's walk through it. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to start a family history even when your records are missing, unclear, or just plain frustrating. Because you don't need more documents to begin, you need a better place to start. So, what just changed? Why does the second version feel different? I didn't magically find records for William's entrance into the world. However, I stopped writing an academic genealogy report. And I started telling a story, minus once upon a time. When you start with timeline storytelling, it sounds like this. He was born, he died, and maybe he got married in the middle. You're beginning at the least interesting point in anyone's stories, unless perhaps they were quintuplets. And in my case, I'm not sure what year he was born, which is even more boring. So how do you fix this? When you're writing at the beginning of your ancestor's life, there are several things you should do. Build the world around them, acknowledge what you don't know, introduce the people in their life, and control the pace of how that story unfolds. I want to go on a brief tangent for a moment. For some of you, you want to start your story strongly, like it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. Or you want to start with Ethan disassembling a bomb and running away. Those are great introductions for an entire book. But for many family history writers, they start writing about their ancestor's birth. So we'll talk about more powerful book introductions in a later video, but for now, when you're writing about when your ancestor was born, I want you to leverage this framework. First, you build your ancestor's world. Your ancestor wasn't born into a void. Your ancestor arrived at a time and location that had context, and you need to bring your reader into that context. My favorite technique for anchoring your reader into the past is through the zoom in approach. Before you mention your ancestor's name, think like the introduction of many Hallmark movies. They zoom way out, establish this setting. Once that's established, they zoom in on the main character to get the story rolling. That way, the story is anchored in a time and place. 3 simple questions will help you zoom in for your ancestor stories, which doesn't have to just be a birth story. First, what was happening in the country? What was changing in the state or more narrower location? And what did daily life look like in their community? Notice how each question narrows the focus from broad context of the whole world to smaller segments of the globe to the community. This is so powerful for any event in your ancestor's life, even when records are absent, because the world still existed, and we have many details about the world when our ancestors were in it. It's an easier entry point into your story that your readers will appreciate. Though they never directly thank you for it. I don't know why. But what happens as you zoom in on your ancestor's life and the picture remains a little out of focus? I keep alluding to the fact that you might be missing some records. For instance, I don't know exactly when William was born because I don't have a birth record, I don't have a family Bible, and census records are inconsistent about his birth year. Can I still write about when he was born? Sure. The goal isn't to invent a birth year when one isn't known. The goal is to write the story you actually have. So now let me show you how to handle uncertainty without apologizing for it and without stopping your story or leaving it out. For many, they will find themselves writing something like this when they encounter uncertain facts about an ancestor. William was likely born around 1842 in Franklin County, Ohio, although no birth records have been found to confirm this. There are no known family Bible records, and he does not appear in the 1850 census. Because of this lack of documentation, can you feel the connection oozing from the page? Yeah, no. Sometime around 1842, William James Townsend entered the world. By the time young William arrived, his older sibling John, about 6 years old, and Elizabeth, just a toddler, welcomed into the cabin. The family's roots in Ohio were newly planted, the soil of Madison Township still fresh beneath their boots. Did you see the uncertainty? If you blinked, you might have missed it. Remember, sometime around 1842, and I just let the story roll. I'm not ignoring the uncertain birth date. I'm just not giving it that much weight. You can include the truth and move on. And if your academic genealogist brains is already pushing back, I've got a simple way to explain why you don't know much about his birth without stopping your story. But you have to wait a minute for that. After establishing the context of the world around your ancestor, it's time to zoom in on the ancestor in the context of their family. Because we're not writing a general history, we're writing family history. As you introduce your ancestor's family, you answer these questions. Who was in William's world? How old were they? What happened shortly before or after he was born? Let's go back to how I inserted the family after I set the stage. Axes rang out in the early morning as towering oak and walnut trees fell, making way for cornfields and pastures. The streams and creeks, Big Walnut, Blacklick, and Alum Creek, kept wells brimming and pastures green. Among the migratory tide, William Townsend and Nancy Lynch had settled in rural Franklin County after arriving from Maryland. By 1840, they lived in Madison Township with 2 children, John, aged 4, and Elizabeth, an infant. Sometime around 1842, and you can see where I introduce William at that point. William didn't remain the youngest in his family very long. His younger brothers, Milby, joined the family in 1844 and Edward in 1846. Notice a couple of things. First, a story unfolds better if we do not dump all the family information in the opening paragraph. Instead, the family entered the story in stages. His parents, his older siblings, then William, then the younger siblings. Next, I often say, do the math, meaning don't include the date someone was born. Tell me how old they are at the time an event is happening. Notice I did the math for William's siblings. You'll also notice I gave ages for the siblings, but not the parents. That's because I don't have them. And instead of slowing down the story to explain that, I just left it out. What doing the math does is it presents a busy household full of young siblings, and that's enough to set the scene. One other thing I want to emphasize is how to introduce the family. A genealogist will often say, children were born. John was born. Elizabeth was born. However, a storyteller will say something like, siblings joined the household. Notice we're shifting to focus on William's perspective and seeing that his siblings, not the children of his parents, which is the same thing, but the story's focus is different. So his siblings are joining the household rather than just being born. It makes it about connection rather than a list of life events. So when you discuss William's family members, let readers meet people when they arrive one at a time. Lists are for family tree charts. Some other examples you can use are William became an older brother, or the cabin grew more crowded each year. Now this next technique is easy to miss with the opening I shared. I'm intentionally slowing the reader down. Genealogists often rush their fences when they have scarce information, but think about this. When reading a story or watching a movie, do storytellers reveal all the details about a person or an event at once? No. Otherwise, their presentation might only be 5 paragraphs or 5 minutes long. So as family history writers, we should not reveal too much too soon. And in my case, I don't want to reveal William's family will be scattered throughout Franklin County, Ohio, shortly after his childhood, which makes it difficult to research him in the mid-1800s. To lead into the next chapter, I want to tease that they scatter, not give everything away. So here's what I wrote. In 1857, William's mother, Nancy, died, leaving behind 5 children in the Townsend home. John, then 21 and unmarried, William at 15, Milby 13, Edward 11, and Perry just 3 years old. With their mother gone and no mention of their father in probate records or surviving paperwork, the Townsend house had stood as a crossroads. The household established in 1840 was soon scattered across other homes, but trying to keep their family ties strong. And soon the chapter ends, and I'm leading a reader into wanting to know why the family scatters, or at least where they scatter to. So remember, family history does not have to spill every fact at once. Readers will keep going if they sense that something is coming. To do that, don't reveal every detail and event on page 1. I'd like to offer one final tip about the opening chapter of your book. Not every chapter in your family history needs to be the same length. I prefer to use variable page counts for my chapters. This allows me, and I recommend this strongly, to have shorter birth chapters. Why? Well, because very few people are into this world in a dramatic fashion, as I mentioned earlier. The birth chapter focuses on establishing setting, introducing the family, and then teases what comes next. The chapter may only be 3 to 5 pages long. Others, like wartime years or major life events, will naturally be longer. So let the nature of a chapter determine its length. If you've made it this far into the video, you'll be interested to know this is part of a series called Write With Me, where I'm walking you through my process of drafting a family history about William James Townsend. In each video, we'll talk about a different part of the writing process, and I'll show you exactly what I'm doing, what's working, and what I'm still figuring out. If you'd like to follow along on my journey, I've linked the full Write With Me playlist in the description box. And if you want to read the chapters as they're shaping up, I'll share that current draft on my blog. It's not perfect, but it's far enough along that you can read it, ask questions, or even make suggestions for improvements, like a beta reader. I want you to be inspired by saying, if Devon can do this, I can do this too. Until the next video, leave a comment and let me know how your ancestors' birth story or opening chapters are coming along and how I can help you make the next writing choice.